Memorial Day can be traced back to the end of the Civil War, and it's a day to remember and honor the men and women of the U.S. Armed Services who paid the ultimate sacrifice to defend their country. If you look back into your family's history, you probably don't need to look too far back to see somebody who either died fighting for their country or went missing in action. My family is no different. In the spring of 1943, Elliot Russell Lund informed his family that he planned to join the Army after graduating from high school in Hollis, New Hampshire. On July 1st, his military journey began at the Army Induction Center in Manchester, New Hampshire, then on to Fort Devens, Massachusetts on the 21st of July, where he was processed into the Army for 2 weeks and where he also signed up for the elite paratrooper training. He then traveled by train to Fort Benning, Georgia for 13 weeks of basic combat training, then 3 additional weeks of special paratrooper training with the 513th Parachute Infantry Regiment. On November 1st, 1943, the 513th transferred to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and then to Camp McCall, North Carolina, where Private Lund earned a promotion to Private First Class. On March 4th, 1944, the 513th was again transferred, this time to the Tennessee Maneuver Area, where they would become attached to the 17th Airborne Division. At the end of the month, the 17th was relocated to Camp Forest, Tennessee, which would also serve as the first POW camp in the U.S. for Japanese and German prisoners of war. PFC Lund would earn the Expert Infantryman Badge on August 1st, and then 12 days later, the 513th was transferred to Camp Miles Standish in Massachusetts, where they prepared to be shipped overseas to Europe to join the fight. The purpose of Camp Miles Standish was kept secret to hide the movement of troops to Europe, and although PFC Lund was only 80 miles from home, he couldn't reveal that he was there and preparing to ship overseas. 75 days after the invasion of Normandy on August 20th, the 513th departed the Boston port of embarkation on the USS Wakefield, en route, without armed escort, through enemy-infested waters to Liverpool, England. On arrival in England, the 17th Airborne moved to Camp Chiselton in Wiltshire, where they would prepare to be dropped behind enemy lines to capture key, strategic points for the advancing armies as part of the newly created 1st Allied Airborne Army. However, the advancing Allied armies were advancing at a rapid rate, with the Germans retreating back just as fast. The Army Command had planned on 18 Allied airborne drops between June and September of 1944, but none were actually needed until September 17th, when the largest airborne operation in history commenced, known as Operation Market Garden. The 17th Airborne Division was held in reserve for Operation Market Garden, which would end in failure at the same time that the Allied advance had stalled along the Siegfried Line, due to the Allied armies outrunning their supplies. Hitler saw this as an opportunity to exploit this Allied weakness, and so 4 days before General Eisenhower would be promoted to a 5-star general, December 16, 1944, Hitler launched a counterattack, creating a bulge in the Allied lines, which would later become known as the Battle of the Bulge. It was Hitler's last chance to push the Allies back to the Atlantic, as he threw division after division at the Allies. This German attack was spearheaded by Army Group B and the 6th SS Panzer Army. As reports trickled into Eisenhower's office about the German push, Eisenhower committed the reserves, consisting of the British 6th Airborne, the U.S. 11th Armored Division, and the U.S. 17th Airborne Division. As the 17th Airborne Division was moving toward their assigned defensive positions along the Meuse River, the U.S. 101st Airborne Division, which had been part of Operation Market Garden, was being encircled in the town of Bastogne in Belgium. On December 22nd, in what would become a famous moment in military history, several Germans approached the encircled 101st Airborne under a flag of truce and offered the American commander, General McAuliffe, an ultimatum to surrender his division or face certain death. The general responded with bravado with the now famous nuts, implying, if you want this town, come and take it. On Christmas Day, 1944, the 17th Airborne was defending a 70-mile section of the Meuse River. PFC Lund's 1st Battalion, 513th Parachute Infantry Regiment, held a defensive position in a French village called Châtel-Chehery until New Year's Eve, when they were ordered to move up to Neuchâtel, Belgium. On New Year's Day, the 513th dug slit trenches in frozen ground with temperatures below zero at positions 5 miles west of Bastogne. General George Patton paid a visit to the 17th Airborne headquarters and ordered the 1st Battalion 513th Parachute Infantry Regiment into a wooded section still occupied by elements of the 5th SS Panzer Army. At 08:15 on January 4th, 1945, in a blizzard and below freezing temperatures, the 513th pushed the attack with PFC Lund's 1st Battalion encountering the enemy soon after the attack began and Bois de Fraguet. Initially, the 1st Battalion met light resistance and took 25 German prisoners. As they spread out to clear the woods, they became pinned down by heavy fire near Coq-Laval. At around 1 p.m., the 1st Battalion ran out of ammunition, and as German tanks worked their way around the right flank of 1st Battalion to surround them, Captain Ganaway radioed the battalion headquarters, asking permission to fall back. "Stay where you are at all costs," was the directive. An hour later, a German officer approached under a white flag of truce with a simple message: "Surrender, or all American troops will be killed." At 3 p.m., after nearly 6.5 hours of combat, 150 of the 500 men in the 1st Battalion, including PFC Lund, were surrendered to the Nazi SS troops. The men were ordered to discard all equipment and forced to march 15 to 20 miles a day in freezing temperatures and snow. After a month, they arrived in Gerolstein, Belgium, and from there were boarded 80 people into a boxcar and transported to Stalag 4B, arriving mid-February 1945. Now around this time, PFC Lund of Company B, 1st Battalion, 513th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 17th Airborne Division, was officially reported as missing in the Army's missing report as of January 4th, 1945. Stalag 4B was one of the largest POW camps in Germany and became the basis of the book and movie Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut, who was also a POW at that camp. On March 3rd, PFC Lund's personal effects were inventoried in his former unit and sent to the effects depot. 6 days later, the Germans sent word through the Red Cross that Russell Lund was indeed a POW. Unfortunately, on April 1st, at the age of 20, PFC Elliot Russell Lund reportedly died of diphtheria while in captivity. He would be buried on April 5th in a community cemetery in Neuberdorf, Germany, and 18 days later, elements of the Soviet First Ukrainian Front would overrun Stalag 4B in a race to get to the heart of Germany before their British and American counterparts. Coincidentally, many of those held prisoners by the Germans would now be held by the Russians as the first POWs of the Cold War. For Russell Lund, his journey back home would be long and extensive. After being disinterred and identified, he would be shipped across the Atlantic by ship, then by train to his final resting place in his hometown of Hollis, New Hampshire, on April 20th, 1950. In 2009, PFC Elliot Russell Lund was posthumously awarded the Purple Heart for a POW who subsequently died in captivity. This video wouldn't be possible without the extensive research my father started doing on his uncle while he was serving in the 3rd Armored Division in Germany during the Cold War. He wrote a book about it called Missing in Belgium, which can be found on Amazon. PFC Lund is only one of approximately 79,000 Americans who went missing in action in World War II, and as of 2014, 72,000 still remain unaccounted for. The Korean War has 7,800 Americans still missing, Vietnam has 1,500, and the Gulf Wars in Iraq have 6 missing persons combined. This is the real meaning of Memorial Day, and while this video is about my great uncle, it's important to remember those that never made it back, the real forgotten figures. So if you're watching this, and you know a family member or know someone who never made it back, please share in the comments section so they can be remembered and honored as well. As always, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at PastAndPresent4. Thanks for watching. Just divine.